Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Coach Gift Monday, kicking it for you and for yours. You know what I'm saying? Back at it once again. And before I get started, I'd like to give credit to my ancestors for giving me the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And also, man, I'd like to give a shout out to y'all for watching, looking, subscribing to the channel, doing what you do, whatever, picking up the knowledge. Now, we just recently here in the United States, and Hells in North America, went through a Martin Luther King Day. And a lot of people made side of King's, of course, I Have a Dream speech. Some people made side of his infidelity from the far side of it. But nobody really talked about King the Pan-Africanist. And the things he was doing for black people, African people worldwide. The African Internationalist, I should say, not a Pan-Africanist. So, people that's gone had to hit him with this stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like, he never went to Africa and things of that nature. Those are falsehoods. Or he was part of Aboriginal and stuff like that. That's a falsehood, too. He talked highly about Africa. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to get into this stuff. This one right here is from the Ghana web. So this comes from Ghana. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to hear what they had to say about it. You know what I mean? Martin Luther King on Nkrumah, Kwame Nkrumah, who was president of Ghana. Martin Luther King on Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana independence and U.S. Civil Rights Movement. The original author of the following piece is Harold Green. His piece is entitled Beyond the Dream, Martin Luther King in Africa. Alright? So this is from the essay Introduction. King's fame, admiration for Gandhi's leadership in the nonviolent rebellion was not isolated. He, Martin Luther King Jr., drew inspiration from Kwame Nkrumah, who led Ghana to a peaceful independence. Martin Luther King Jr. quotes, I can remember when Mrs. King and I first journeyed to Africa to attend the independence celebration of the new nation of Ghana. We were very happy about the fact that we were now 8 independent countries in Africa. But since the night of March 5, 1957, some 27 new independent nations had come to being in Africa. This revealed to us that the old order of colonialism is passing away and a new order of freedom and human dignity is coming into being. In this period, when the American Negro is given moral leadership and inspiration to his own nation, he must find the resources to aid his suffering brothers in his ancestral homeland. Now, this is Martin Luther King Jr., Hunter College, New York City, Human Rights Day, December 10th, 1965. When discussing the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., especially his I Have a Dream speech, which is often misled as his concern for global justice, particularly in Africa. While Dr. King's outspokenness about the Vietnam War towards the end of his life has been well documented and discussed, his views about the need to end anti-colonialism and anti-apartheid in Africa is less so. Dr. King was very much aware of the connection to Africa and clearly understood the parallels between our struggle for freedom here and his struggle for freedom on the continent. Having attended the inauguration of Kwame Nkrumah as Prime Minister of the newly independent Ghana, King was in Ghana from March 4th to the 27th of 1957. Dr. King was quickly recognized as correct connection. Dr. King spoke of being overcome with emotion during the independence ceremony as he stood the historical significance of the moment. On the one hand, of the source of inspiration of Ghana independence meant for the fight for freedom for black people in America on the other. Dr. King was very much aware of our connection to Africa and clearly understood the parallels between our struggle for freedom here and the struggle for freedom on the continent. Upon his return to America, Dr. King was taught about his impressions of the trip to Ghana in a sermon titled The Birth of a New Nation. Within that sermon, Dr. King talked about continuing to fight not just against segregation, but also against colonialism, imperialism, and the exploitation in Africa. We forgive Dr. King, who did not benefit from an African-centered scholarship at the time, for his historically inaccurate references to Egypt in his sermon. Dr. King would eventually speak out against apartheid in South Africa, and as early as 1964, was calling on the Western powers to impose economic sanctions on a racist regime. I have to admit that as a young student activist, I never embraced Dr. King's philosophy of passive resistance. Nonetheless, time has allowed me to take full measure of the man and recognize his monumental heroic figure was far more complex and engaged in the world, especially the African world, than his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech reveals. King was in the audience in Ghana and heard Kwame Nkrumah say, "Our independence is meaningless unless we link it with the total liberation of Africa." During Kwame's Independence Day speech, it has been suggested that the themes "free at last" was influenced by the similar words Kwame spoke in that speech. Dr. King was also extended and accepted an invitation to Nnamdi Azikiwe to attend Akabi's appointment as Governor General of Nigeria November 16, 1960. Nigeria had declared its independence from Britain on October 1st, 1960. Dr. King was no doubt an internationalist when it came to the views of human rights. His views and concerns were not confined to the geographical bounds of the United States. King would visit the United Nations, where he went with many leaders of the world, but specifically those African leaders of those newly free independent countries who had achieved independence but not yet achieved. Thus, what should be not overlooked is the view that Dr. King shared with Malcolm X that the plight of the black man in America was one of the violations of his human rights, and not just civil rights, and that America should be brought before the United Nations, where the plight of African Americans could be raised. So he agreed with Malcolm X in taking them to the United Nations, where America could be tried. Part of this strategy involved the solicitation of the newly independent African countries, which could offer resolutions condemning apartheid in America and embarrass America before the international community. King was no doubt an internationalist when it came to the issues of human rights. What should also not be overlooked is the inspiration the civil rights and black power movements in America provided to the various independent movements in Africa. Dr. King, like Malcolm X, sought to grow this connection, as above quoted, clearly indicates, understood the systems of white supremacy was global and needed to be defeated globally. In addition, Dr. King realized the importance to blacks in America, having been snatched from Africa and lost our culture and identity, and reclaiming that culture. It is through this process of reclaiming African culture, Dr. King will go on to say that we will regain our humanity. Dr. King, growing international ways, would have not been welcomed by the system of global white supremacy. Of course, even some of his close black associates will eventually become detractors. While J.Edgar Hoover described Dr. King as the most dangerous man in America, those were foreboding words. But with Dr. King's growing outspokenness on international matters, J.Edgar Hoover's view was no doubt shared by forces involved in exploiting black people and other people of color in parts of the world. As we commemorate the anniversary of Dr. King's speech, "I Have a Dream" speech, let us not forget the speech was inspired by his direct desire to see people of the world free from injustice, especially those of African descent, at home and abroad, something not lost on many Africans in the continent today. So, there you have it. Dr. King was in Africa twice. He was in two meetings. He knew he was an African. You know, he said in his speeches. So we can kill that other stuff about he was talking about he was an Aboriginal from here and things of that nature. No, he didn't say nothing like that. He knew that we built the country and stuff like that. And he knew about our brothers and sisters, about the connection. But like I said, nobody talk about the African Internationalist king. Nobody talks about this king. You know what I'm saying? And how I got reinforced and strengthened when he went to Jamaica and went to visit Marcus Garvey grave site. You see some of it in his fifth book, but his fifth book is, you got to, Chaos and Community. You got to read it at your own peril because some of the stuff been chopped up. But, you can see some of it breaking on through. And his speeches he had up north before he died with Ahmed Barker and stuff like that in New Jersey. Anyway, this is a Coast Gift Fun Day. Much love to you and yours. You know what I'm saying? Hey, subscribe to the channel. You know, donate to the movement through the Cash App. Hey, you know what I'm saying? Much love. We up here dropping African history every day, all day. Peace.